Hello, my name is Rory, and I am going to be selling this 2007 Honda Civic LX. I'm just going to go through two different videos. This will be the first part, talking about the vehicle itself, a little bit of the history, and then going through the interior a little more in depth, and then the exterior of the vehicle. And then second part, I'll go underneath the vehicle and do a little video. But anyway, 07 Honda Civic, 117,000 miles. It was my parents. They bought it in 2009. It had like 52,000 on it, I believe. When my parents sold it to me, it had about 94,000 miles. That was back in 2022. Selling because, well, you can see the Highlander there. Lexi got a new vehicle, and we need to get rid of one, and I'll be keeping the Honda Accord. But anyway, really good vehicle. Everything works on it. The only thing, there is a airbag light on. I borrowed my scanner out to my uncle. I have to get that back, but I am almost willing to bet that it's this right here. It's a fairly cheap replacement. I have to look it up, but pretty simple. You take the dash bezel off and you can replace that. It might even be attached with the hazard light, but there's a pressure switch in the seat that basically tells the car if there's a passenger there or not. If there is, it will deploy an airbag if there's an accident. If there's not someone sitting there, the airbag won't deploy. So that's one thing that could be addressed. I had the inverted fuel gauge issue. I took apart the dash and addressed that today. Had to do a little soldering. The display board was kind of loose from the back of the circuit board. I'm 95% sure I fixed it, but only time will tell because of vibration and everything. But it's a pretty common issue, but it was fixed. Radio and everything works. The AC, the compressor, condenser fan, evaporator valve, and then flush and fill. My parents did that in 2020, so the AC works really well. Heat and everything works. Radio works, nothing special. The auxiliary port does work, and so does the 12 volt power outlet. The speakers were all replaced with, I think, Rockford Fosgate, because the speakers blown previously, and then I didn't have any sound coming out of the radio. It does have all of the owner's manuals and everything, a couple of receipts. There's a receipt for when my parents bought it, back in 09, I believe it was, or maybe it was 2010. That's all there. The code for the radio is in this service history right in the front. Here's the code. So if you take the battery out or the battery goes dead for whatever reason, it'll have a security code that you have to put in to reactivate the radio, and that's what that is. Otherwise, all the windows work and everything. Interior is decent. My mother is a smoker, and she did smoke in this car. There's a couple of burns. There's one on the floor over here. Nothing too major. There's a faint smell of cigarette smoke, but it's not overly bearing. I don't really notice it, but somebody might if maybe they're not used to it. But it has husky floor mats, which are good. It is somewhat clean in the door jambs for the most part. Back seat's in pretty good condition. The middle headrest to me is annoying because it obstructs your rear view mirror, so that is in a box in the trunk. It also has a bunch of spare parts, which I'll go over. Nothing special, just a really basic commuter car. We'll go through all the doors. My mother put very few miles on. She worked in Chippewa, and she also lives in Chippewa. She just basically drove it to and from work, to and from the grocery store, miscellaneous errands, so has a lot of life left. But I'll briefly go over the exterior here. Pretty normal wear and tear for an 07. It has some rust, of course, down on the rear rocker panel there. We'll get a better look underneath. Otherwise not too terrible. Some scratches on the back of the trunk lid, pretty normal. Somebody bumped me in a parking lot, couldn't figure out who it was, so I didn't lose any sleep over it. Miscellaneous scratches here and there, but everything works. Cruise control works. Lights and everything all work. They're a little fogged just because it's never, as far as I know, it's never been polished, the headlights. But things that I've done to the motor, I did replace the spark plugs when I bought it from my parents. I didn't change the coils. Everything seems to be just fine. I did change this O2 sensor, just preventative maintenance, and then there's another one down there that I also changed. I would imagine, I don't know for certain, but in 2020 I think the serpentine belt was replaced along with the condenser, fan, and compressor. I would think that they would have changed that just because they were in there. I did replace the air filter 10,000 miles ago or so that could be looked at in the future. This battery here, I don't know exactly when. I never touched it. I see it's my dad's handwriting. I think it's 2021. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. The vehicle does have the oil minder gauge, so the oil filter and oil has been changed on time and everything. Other than that, I haven't done a whole lot to it, to the motor itself. Brakes are fairly new yet. I do have rotors in the trunk and brake pads, but I opted to just change out the pads. Quite a bit of meat left, just to get more life. There's no noise or anything. They're Wagner ceramic pads, so no issues there. The tie rods and everything are fine, but they are older. I do have new tie rods in the back. The way that I kind of see it is a vehicle kind of has two lives. You have the first life of everything's new, and then once it gets to be, around 100,000 miles or so, and you know, 7 to 10 years old, then all of, or most of, the suspension components and everything are basically needing to be replaced, and then it's kind of like its second life until it basically breaks down and is not cost efficient to fix. It's leaking water right now because I have the AC running. That stupid me. Should probably just turn that off. One thing to note too about the AC is the condenser fan. It'll kick on for 30 seconds and then cycles off for 30 seconds. And you'll hear it here in a second, but I find it to be really annoying, but that is just Honda and how they do things. My Accord does it too, it's an 09, but other than that, it is what it is. Turn this off quick. So back to the second life of this vehicle, I replaced the springs and the shocks. Brakes I haven't touched, they're drums, so hard to say. Haven't done anything else to the rear, but you're good on the rear suspension. Everything's still pretty tight. So my thought was I was going to buy parts and then for the front end and replace the tie rod ends. I also have the lower ball joints, and then the coilover struts. I didn't buy those yet, but my plan was to just basically update the front end and drive this thing until it's no good anymore. But anyway, so everything is still good. It's steers well and everything. No slop, no bearing hum, nothing like that. But I'll then go underneath in a second video. The exhaust, I think there is maybe there's not, but it sounds like it just sounds like it's maybe got a few years left. I don't see any holes or anything, but given the age of the vehicle, that is the original exhaust and everything. So, but I'll go underneath in the next video.